Let's do this. Just a special shout out for Phil, who always says good evening. Thought I would start off with a good morning message for everyone, except for Phil, who gets a good evening message. Phil made it onto the slide. That's right. All right, let's roll. Rock and roll. Oh, are we recording, Ben?
Yes, we are. I remember to press it just now.
I'm going to pull up some notes here so I can actually say things. There we go. Alrighty, so we've covered the basics. This is last week. We got set up with tools, planned, we mined, we briefed, we wrote. And now most of us are still proofing today as part of that optimize step, but we're going to move forward with the content and talk about delivering and promoting the piece of content in this session. And before we get rolling, check-in time. So when you sat down to write your draft, just curious to see if you discovered anything new, anything unexpected, maybe some new writing hacks, new challenges. Would love to have you share that in the chat, talk it over. I know people on Mighty Networks have had some pretty tricky questions along the way. So if there is a burning question on your mind, please ask it and we'll do our best to, troubleshoot here with you. If it's easier to say instead of type, feel free to, open up your video and come on with us and chat. You're totally welcome to do that anytime. At this point, you should have a draft. So nothing perfect, but definitely some words on a page that someone could apply the proofing checklist to. So if you're in that spot, you're definitely in a good spot. I know a couple of people have shared their drafts. So I just wanted to open those up and kind of get our minds wrapped around what we're doing right now. Let's pull up a couple here. I've got one from Elena in my home state of Madison.
Here's one you downloaded earlier.
Yeah. Are you... Yes, you're seeing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Elena used Google Docs for the first time. So that was a learning curve. Okay, so you used SEMrush, the Google, the add-on, the little widget. That is pretty nice. I don't know if anybody else used that. But yeah, it keeps you focused, and having it right there in the sidebar of your Google document can be just nicer than going back and forth from a tool. So I'm glad you found that. I'm just going to take a peek at this here. So it looks like you are targeting the keyword probably bathroom remodel. Probably. Is that right? Yes. Okay, bathroom remodel. And it's turn your bathroom remodel into a sanctuary. And then we've got talking about textures. We've got lots of photos, which is really smart for something that is, visually driven, that people are going to expect photos. And then beyond textures, we talk about vanity ideas, floating vanity. So then we go into these types of vanities underneath vanity ideas. And then we go into a spa shower. Oh, this looks awesome. And then we talk about spa shower. We have a picture, heated flooring, I wish. A picture of that, and then we talk a little bit about budget. So that's pretty cool. This is probably for a business that does bathroom remodels, right? Yeah, you wrote it in the voice of the owner of the company. Okay, yeah.
I'd also like to know where it is located, because I would have thought that bathroom remodeling is more of a kind of local service than it is we don't actually need to compete against all the people who are trying to write about bathroom remodeling unless we're selling products for bathroom remodeling. So I think it's worth thinking about. Where are you located, Elena? Okay, Madison. Yeah, but I think, so if you search for bathroom remodeling, the keyword difficulty is 35. The global volume is 54,000. But clearly we don't need to compete against all those people. We only need to compete against the people in Madison, right? So I would try really hard to localize the search So it's about bathroom remodeling in Madison, rather than trying to globally rank for bathroom remodeling.
Something to consider though is that, when, I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm searching, Google will pick responses from what companies that are based in Madison. So you may already, stand a good chance of getting into those local results. It depends on more on your website's SEO, like the more technical stuff that's set up on your website. But yeah something to consider is that maybe a title tweak could be like bathroom remodel in Madison, or like Wisconsin bathroom, so that when people are searching for it and they see your blog post title, the people that are in Madison who are your best customers, they'll be like, ooh, relevant to me. I live in Madison.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is the keyword difficulty goes from 54 down to 1 when you actually specify Madison, and it still has a volume of 200, which is really good.
That's incredible. Seriously, do that.
And then you can still use all the information from the parent keyword, which is bathroom remodel. Because I think, just some quick thoughts, Sarah, you can dive in again, but in fact, maybe I'm just going to share my screen. Actually, no, I'm not. There's one thing I think you can do is use the keywords a bit more in the headings, because I think what you've written here reads really nicely. But I think what would be great to include is some of the things that people are looking for. So I know you've got like at the bottom of like, don't break the bank or something, but sometimes we just need to be a bit more blunt about things. And so, for example, that don't break the bank, what we really need in that title is bathroom remodel cost, because that's what people are looking for. So it could be don't break the bank and then a hyphen, bathroom remodel costs, or something like that. So that way we can kind of combine that more easy to read stuff with what people are actually looking for. They want just to know how much is it going to cost. They want ideas. And so I'd leverage all those keywords from that parent keyword, bathroom remodel, and make sure you're covering all of those in your H2s of the post. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I would also say right here at the end, I see you've got some, short kind of promotional message for the business. So in here, you definitely would want to, as you're proofreading, add a hyperlink, some text to the way that people can sign up, or contact, like link to the contact page or something like that. But this is definitely well on its way. I think with that tweak to be a little bit more relevant and a little bit more informational for people who are, because a lot of, when you think about bathroom remodeling, you want to know how much it costs and what are your options. So I think kind of approaching it from like, show people options, show people the cost. It'll be even more useful than it is right now. So it's in a good place. I'm going to move on to more there's 3 other ones. See if we can hit them all. We've got Murals. Who is Murals? Public art. Can't remember. Alyssa. It's Alyssa. Awesome possum. So of course we have lots of beautiful images, and the title is 10 Murals to Inspire Hope, Public Art of the Northeast. And I think public art is the focus keyword here, because I can see it in your H1, or sorry, your H2. I can also see it in your, first sentence of your paragraph. So that's great. Public art, let's have a look. So it's where to find public art, how public art benefits the community, outdoor art galleries. And then you kind of have, dribbled these, photos in as you tell the story. These are cool. And then why public art? So it's kind of the benefits of. I think this is in a good place. I think we need to focus on what we're delivering. So in the title, you promised 10 murals to inspire hope, public art of the Northeast. And so what I'm expecting, Ben can catch me if I'm wrong, what I'm expecting here is kind of this like story about how these public art things are changing communities. So I would expect maybe a quote from like an alderman or somebody, you know, who says like, this is our initiative, we're funding these artists, or like, there were 5 festivals last year that were based on public arts that brought the community together. So I'd kind of expect to see some sort of like statistical proof that murals do inspire hope and that they are an initiative worth backing.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you know, Sarah, brief why we're writing about public art?
Why are we writing about public art? There are backstories to a lot of these. I see. Why are we writing about public art? Wasn't this for like a photography blog? Oh, a client in Murals. You have a client in Murals. They make murals?
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically trying to find, my understanding of this article is that your audience would be somebody who's interested in commissioning a mural. Okay, yeah, he's a general contractor. So it would be somebody, you're looking for people who would read this content and be interested in commissioning a mural. I think that this is a good start. I think what I said it still stands. Just trying to be a little bit more like delivering on that promise and really telling that compelling story about why these murals are changing the communities. Like I can clearly see in the titles of these that they have a story behind them. Like this one's about equity and justice, flower power. There's clearly an environmental message there, trades for a difference. Like these are really rich content ideas. And honestly, each of these could be made into like this breakaway narrative where you explore the, you know, motives and stories behind them. But I think that in and of this article, I would focus on making sure that you tell people the clear impacts that these murals have had in their communities. If you can find any sort of stats or something like that to back it up.
I think, yeah. And I think the other just thing I would say, again, I don't, obviously it's hard to make comments on this without seeing the brief, but one thing that I see, if they're trying to get work as a mural artist, that is a lot easier thing to rank for than public art. So also, if just in terms of trying to make that connection between these murals and what your client does, I think somehow we'd want to tie that back. So like, if these are murals to inspire, I mean, you said hope, but maybe it's also to inspire commissioning one yourself. I think it's actually instead trying to rank for wherever it is that you're located, mural artist is a lot easier to rank for. Because public art's very, very broad.
Yeah. I think awareness is always a tricky one. You know, when you have awareness as a goal, it's obviously important. It's part of business. It's part of exposing your ideas and product. But if you do go for something broad and you say, oh, I kind of just want awareness, it will be hard for you to back up your efforts with results, because it'll be hard for you to understand, like, have people become aware, you know? So whenever you can, it's nice to target stuff with like this type of content, target stuff that you're like, I'm going to try to get people looking for mural artists. And then if I get them, I know I've got them because they've signed up or they've called me, or, you know, awareness is always tricky. But yeah, it's in a good place.
So I'm just going to share my screen just so that, because I know Alyssa's saying maybe I saw it wrong. So I just want to explain. So am I sharing? Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, here is public art. And we can see, great volume, reasonably difficult. You need lots of links. But then when we kind of niche down into this muralist topic or mural artist, which is kind of what we want to rank for, you can see that people are looking for mural artists in different places, which is cool. I don't know where it is that you're located. Also, I just want to look at that muralist one as well. Okay, that's competitive as well. But yeah, mural artist is actually pretty good. Yeah, how to find one. This could be an interesting part of your post. Like, if you're still sticking on this idea of 10 murals to inspire hope, and about, so like Sarah's talking about, give a bit of this story around why these, like the hope story behind them, and then how to replicate this. That could be an interesting kind of angle on your post.
Yeah.
And one other thing just to say, in the captions for your pictures, I noticed that you just listed like the name of the image. Like, this is the, I don't know, hope something by this person. And I think it's important that if we're trying to rank for mural artist or public art, like, write again, like, this public art example is from blah, 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 blah. So we don't want to stuff it with keywords, but we need to make sure Google's really clear that what this image is about, and that it's kind of contributing to the post.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. I'm going to move on to John's piece, I believe, on birth control in Kenya. So this is for the, I believe, nonprofit or the company In Their Hands, which provides access to free health services for girls in Kenya. The focus keyword is birth control. And it's obviously a local, they're targeting local results in Kenya. And I know, John, you mentioned that you couldn't find any results, like local search results, in terms of like looking at the volume. But I think, again, it's similar to the Madison situation, where you'll be able to rank locally as long as you're based locally and including keywords like Kenyan girls, Kenya, and communities, Kenya, based in Kenya, things like that. So you've got some keyword research here. This, I think, is a really strong brief. I think that these yellow highlighted words make a lot of sense, like birth control pills brands, best birth control, targeting Kenyan girls would be, making sure you have that in there. I think that these are all really strong keywords to include. I think best birth control for Kenyan girls in 2020 is a really strong title. It has a clear promise. I can see here you've got kind of the structure of your article laid out, but not, stuff written. But I think based on what you've got here, it makes a lot of sense. You've got, birth control is important, stat, what can you do? Here's the birth control pills. Here's how you access these services in 2020. So I think this is a very strong brief, and it's organized really well. You start with birth control pills, and then you have these H3s where you talk about the different brands. And then you talk about specifically brands that are currently available in Kenya now. I would actually, this smaller point about currently available in Kenya, I would bring that out and as an H2. And I would say, like, what birth control is available in Kenya now? ? And then I would have that paragraph below where you talk about it, because that's going to be really important for people in Kenya who are looking at this post. Other birth control methods, okay, alternatives. And it looks like you've planned out some links to go through to different health resource sites. That looks really good. Kenyan girls, I think this H2 could use a little bit more embellishment, just so people know, like, what about Kenyan girls. Maybe something like information for Kenyan girls, or like Kenyan girls can get free healthcare access, or whatever it is, a full sentence so people know what's going to be under that section. And then I see you here, you've got, some of the information from your wife's blog post, which you can probably pull a lot of these stats, and I'm imagining you're going to kind of recycle those into your post. On it, I would not change anything except for the tweaks, these 2 heading tweaks. I think this is really strong. And then we've got Eric's. Ba-da-dum. For the productmanager.com, he's targeting the focus keyword product manager versus product owner. So this is a comparison piece. And the title is Product Manager versus Product Owner. What are the 5 key differences? That's a great title. I think it has a clear promise. I don't really see a draft here yet. I'm imagining that you're still kind of working on it, Eric. But just based on what you've got in the brief, it's looking good. I think your value makes sense, the value that you deliver. Your audience has a problem with clarifying the difference between the roles when researching potential job opportunities. So you've really hit like a very niche audience there, which is going to help you structure your post. It's specifically for people who are job hunting and trying to figure out the difference between like job listing titles. So I think that that's an interesting angle, and I'm curious to see what you do with it, because I think that's really specific and cool. You've got some links planned out to use. Those are all good, reputable sources. And some good FAQ. Is product manager higher than product owner? That's a really good frequently asked question. That should definitely be an H2. It should be like right at the top of your post almost, because that's probably kind of a more emotionally driven question. People are like, whose job is more important? So I think that H2 could go up high. And then who do product owners report to? That could be more nestled in your other sections. Eric's saying it was very challenging to find something volume-wise on keyword research. For product manager versus product owner, I think volume-wise you're going to be pretty good. Just based on intuition, I know that that's a decent keyword. And I do think that the supporting keywords you found make sense. You're talking product owner versus manager, and so you've got responsibilities, definition, difference between, product management team. Those all make a lot of sense to me. I think you're going to be good. It is challenging though. You do have to dig sometimes to find those words. So yeah, these are looking great.
Yeah, I think one other thing with that product manager, you could slightly broaden the article out so that the product manager versus product owner is just one section within the article. So it could be like the ultimate guide to product management roles or something. And then you do product manager versus project manager, product owner versus product manager, and just do these different comparisons explaining the different roles, which is kind of what you've got when you say, I think further down you said, you started talking about the bigger team. So it'd be interesting to show, you could show what the team looks like. It's like you have the product owner sits up here, the product manager sits down here, the product team is down here. This is the hierarchy, and comparing the different roles. That could be where you broaden it out slightly. But there was.
Did you all lose Ben? I lost him. Did you all lose me? Okay, cool. Well, apparently what he was saying wasn't important enough. No. We'll move on. We'll come back to it when he cuts back in. Sorry, this is the first time we're using big marker, and we're somewhat underwhelmed. But anyways. Oh, Ben, you're back. Do you have anything to finish saying?
I was just saying product manager versus whatever it was, product owner. I can't remember what it was, but the volume was pretty good. I just pressed back on the wrong screen. So yeah, the volume 770 is 7 difficulty. That is a good keyword. But yeah, we just need to think through, okay, if we rank for this keyword, what are we gonna try and get people to do? So if it's about generating email subscriptions, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, good stuff. Awesome. Thanks for letting us, hash apart your idea babies in front of everybody. It can be uncomfortable, but we're kind of immune to the discomfort of critiquing things in front of other people. So forgive us if we just Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for your work. It's looking great. I encourage you all to keep working on those and move them forward because you're in a good place. So that was half the battle. Ha! Creating content's half. Promoting it, I think, is the other half. And it's really important that we talk about this because so often you work so hard on making something and then you publish it and you just hope something happens. And we really can't plan for that. We really have to plan a reasonable amount of time for actually promoting it and really hustling our content on the streets legit. Yeah. So sometime over the next day, I would encourage you to trade your draft with somebody and apply the proofing checklist, which we'll talk about in the homework section. For now, we're moving on. Get your content out in the world, deliver, and promote. So we'll walk through. We'll get you familiar with the process of just publishing something, and then we'll zero in on the two major ways that content gets discovered. Then I'm going to tell you a few secrets about content promotion that I wish I knew when I first started out. And then before the homework, I'll have a quick slide with some useful tools that you can look into if you want to use them to promote your content. So there isn't really a secret sauce in this part. We're just going to do this walkthrough and make sure you see how content comes together on a CMS. It's a content management system. There's a poll in your little polls section. I'm just curious to know if you have published WordPress content before. If you can just check yes or no in that poll, that would help us figure out, how in depth we need to be. But the idea here is definitely not to be a WordPress tutorial. I just want to take you quickly behind the scenes and give you an idea for the mechanics behind publishing. It's looking like a large majority of us, 75%, have not published on WordPress before. Okay, this gives me confidence that I should move forward with this walkthrough just to make sure you have a peek. Let's do this. Alrighty, folks. Here's WordPress. Here's my draft. Here's my draft. Okay, so I'm gonna, oh man, I missed the slide with the process. Here's the process. So basically, I'm just gonna walk through the process of copying my post, putting it into my CMS, pasting it, checking it real quick, adding some meta information. I'm not gonna preview it because I have confidence that I did it perfectly, and then I'll publish it. So I'm just gonna quick show you what I mean. Here we are on my WordPress site. I'm gonna add a new post. And in the meantime, while that is cooking, I'm gonna come into my draft and I'm just gonna highlight everything that is my article. Copy that, and then in my little post editor, once it loads, I'm gonna paste this here. Your WordPress editor is gonna look different depending on what version you use, but this is the basic idea. Boom, there's my content. At this point, I'm just gonna do a quick check. So I look at things like, are my links all good? Do they make sense? One thing I always do is I make sure that my links open in new tabs. So that way when someone clicks the link, they don't get directed off to another site. I want them to stay. I want them to stay on my content. I'm not going to do all of them because that would take too long right now. So I check for that. Make sure that my headings look good. I'll click on my heading and be like, is this the heading that I intended? Okay, they formatted all right. I've got my CTA at the bottom, looking good. Okay, then I move on to my meta information. So I'm just going to enter my focus keyword into Yoast. This is a plugin that helps manage a lot of the SEO stuff surrounding the post. So if you're wondering where I got my focus keyword, I always just keep them in my brief just so I have access to it quickly. I'm also going to add my slug. That's the ending part of my URL. Edit snippet, I'm going to add my slug. So now instead of being a random number at the end of my URL, probably like the one on big marker that you see, it's going to say e-commerce blogs. It's nice to have your keyword in the URL. It's just one more indicator to Google that your article is relevant for your keyword. I'm also going to add my meta description. There we go. Finally, another meta information to add is if I have any categories to pick, I do. So I'm just going to pick e-commerce, let's say, and I have to pick an author. My author for this post is Hannah McNamee, so I have to assign my author, but I'm going to do that in a minute here. And I just want to show you, here we go. SEO analysis is an interesting thing. This is part of Yoast plugin, and it's just one of these extra tools that helps you understand anything that you haven't really covered off very well in your post. It gives you ideas to improve the post. Like, for example, I don't have any images. So Yoast has said, hey, you don't have any images on this page. Add some and make sure that your alt tags look good. So just some ideas for improving your post. Right now, I kind of have like this sad orange face, which means it's just okay in terms of on-page SEO. Finally, I'm going to make sure that my title is plugged in. Yeah, it's looking good. I'm going to save that draft. So in WordPress, if you decide to use WordPress or any CMS, you can see all of your posts in this list. So I can go to all posts and I'll see my draft there. Here it is. The best e-commerce blogs every e-commerce manager should read. And what I'll do right now, I already have the author entered up into the system. So what I can do is I can just pick Hannah. There we go. Now she's the author. Update. Great. My final step on this would be to publish it. Obviously, I did that very quickly, and I don't want to publish it because I still need to fix the links and stuff. But the final step is basically just hitting publish and letting it be live. So that's your basic process for getting through WordPress. Let's switch out. Are there any questions on that? Okay, it's looking like we're good. We're good to move forward. I'm going to exit out of that just in case. I don't want WordPress to make my thingies stop. All right, is there anything here that I am forgetting to tell you? I want to chat and answer any specific post loading questions before we move on. Give you a moment to think. Here's the process in case you wanted to refer back to that. It's important to know it because if you're planning on publishing on one of our sites, I'll be asking you to ping me with an email with your info so I can get you set up as a contributor. And then you'll be able to log on and go through this process yourself and kind of play with the tools that we have set up. Yeah. Oh, a quick poll also, speaking on that. Let's open it. Start polling. I want to know what you're planning to publish on. So if you're going to look at one of the sites that we're publishing on, a different website that's live and you have access to it, a different website that's not live yet, or just something totally else. I don't know what that would be. Okay, cool. So for those of you who are publishing on a different website that's not live, this is obviously, kind of keeping in mind for the future type thing. But for those of you who are publishing, there's 6 of you who are publishing on a different website and you can get access to it. I strongly recommend that if you don't have access to it yet, you email that person right away and you just ask them to set you up with a login as a contributor or an author or something like that so that you can log in and load this post if that's what you're planning on doing with that. Good stuff. Let's move along. Let's see, questions. Angela's asking, in this post example, would you add an image or leave as is? I am going to add an image. I have an image, a featured image. I just didn't load it up, but yes. Yeah, as Ben said, I'm just showing like the basic, like this is what you do. You put it in the CMS, you fix everything and get it live. So if you need, more of a tutorial, there's a bazillion WordPress things out there to help you, work through that. That's the basic process though. So once it's live, you already know there's a bazillion channels to promote your content and a bazillion tactics to share. I don't really know if that list serves your best interest because it's huge. So here's kind of what I'm talking about. There's a lot of this discussion around promoting revolves around channels, like what social media should I be posting on and how frequently, and which channel should I care most about? Like, how do I grow my following across all these channels? And you also start to look at tactics. I mean, there's plenty of those. You can look up these tactics anytime. You just search for content promotion and do some research, and you may find a new tactic to experiment that works for you. So I want to get the lay of the land. What are some popular tactics that you've heard about? Like, what's the most common advice that you think you hear when people are like, oh, promote your stuff? Like, what are the tactics that are most commonly used? Sharing on social media. Yeah, that one's an interesting one. It's weirdly counterintuitive because it feels good to share, but you always have to keep in mind that you're sharing with like your audience that already knows who you are. So sharing is great for cultivating your community that you already have, but it's not necessarily the best for reaching new people, which is interesting. But yes, I would say that share on social media is probably the most common tactic that people recommend when they're like, oh, you're blogging? Like, share it on social media. Definitely. Yeah. So it brings me to a point that, if getting our products or ideas in front of people was just a matter of performing that tactic or some similar tactic on a channel, we'd all be doing a stellar job. But it's not that easy. So instead of bombarding you with like a mega list of tactics that you could or should use, I'm just going to reduce the clutter and zero in on what I think counts. It's not about the tactic that you use. They all work to some degree. It depends on your budget and your brand and everything else. So let's talk instead about the mechanism behind the tactics. So content gets discovered in really just two major ways. Either someone shows it to you, which is sharing, and that's usually kind of passive because you weren't actively looking for that content. This is discovered, from person to person, so it's considered viral. And the second way is that you search for it. And when you discover content this way, you're actively looking for something, and search traffic is largely captured by content that ranks on search engines and has good SEO. So it's kind of SEO traffic. Now, you can, of course, have a blog that performs well in SEO and gets shared on social media, but these two different types of content discovery show very different patterns. Okay? Shared content and search content behave differently. Shared or viral content usually has a big spike in traffic when it gets shared, and then it goes back to a little trickle. This is an example from our news site. We published content in late March, and then when it was shared, we saw this big spike in traffic, and now it's basically died down. Search content, on the other hand, it usually takes a while to get traffic and to bring in those results. You can see there's like months and months and months before this actually hit its maximum capacity of traffic. But once you do hit that, it's relatively stable or even like cyclical as long as you keep maintaining it over time. So this is an example of a post we wrote on why is project management important, and search demand for that is pretty regular. So if we can stay ranking, we get pretty regular traffic. Any questions or comments on those things before we move on? Please hit me with them at any moment and we will hash it out.
Yeah.
Any comments from you, Ben?
Yeah, no, I think this is really important. That people understand the potential of SEO. And I just want to make sure everyone's understanding why we're about to talk about SEO and its potential value.
Yeah, you can see like this on the left here, you can see it's like 10,000 views. This is monthly. So you think like 10,000 people coming to the website every month just from this blog post. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, cool. Let's keep going.
Yeah, lovely. So moving on, we're going to talk about another point between the difference between that shared and that searched content. Okay? because shared content and search content behave differently, they also require different things to work to bring you, sustainable traffic. So what do they require? What moves the needle? That's a really good question. And this is where we get to the really juicy, good stuff. Here is where we get to the secrets about promoting content that I wish I'd known when I first started out. These are the things that I think we gloss over or we lose sight of when we run out in the world and we just start sharing and we tweet our content like crazy. Okay, secret number one, really gotta earn it. We live in the attention economy now, and people's attention is divided across so many different things. So sharing content and putting in all that effort to share, if it's not share worthy, that is just way too much work because you're constantly blasting your message out and you're working hard and you're getting no results. And similarly, creating organic search content that isn't search worthy ends up not ranking, and it's just way too much work. So when you focus on really deserving and earning that traffic based on people's real demands and wants and desires, then it's way easier to get it. To earn sustainable traffic from shares, your content needs to be really sticky. And to earn sustainable traffic from search, your content needs to be really high quality. And of course, both of those are pretty subjective. So by sticky, I mean that it resonates emotionally. So if you look at those green boxes, it's from that the periodic table of content marketing we saw earlier. It has words like funny, sexy, shocking, moving, unbelievable. These are words that show us an emotion that our content creates in someone else. And for someone to have the impulse to share it and to risk their reputation among their friends and family, it has to make them look good when they share. So sticky content is really hard to pull off. And we honestly don't really know if or why people will share. This is a really good example. I don't know if you recognize the Instagram egg. Anybody recognize this? It was posted in January of last year. Yeah, it was posted by a marketing creator, an advertising person in the UK, with this caption that was like, "Let's set the world record and get the most liked post." And it got like 20 million likes in a matter of days. And that egg actually holds the world record for the most liked online post of any social media platform in history. So yeah, even when you thought you knew what makes people share, you just don't. Sensational viral success like the Instagram egg is really rare, and it's really tricky for the people like us who don't really have this massive following of some kind, which is why we think that SEO and organic traffic is just really more, feasible and doable for anybody as long as you follow the best practices. So speaking of SEO, what does high quality mean when you're talking about search traffic? So speaking of search engines strictly, they want to rank content that they think best matches the user's query. So as long as your content fulfills the searcher's need better than the other options do, then you have a chance to rank. The downside here is that high quality does take time and it does take research, as you've seen. But the upside is that unlike sharing, we do have a clear idea of what makes something high quality because we have all these tools that dig into the data behind search queries and help us understand what people want and need so we can make stuff that aligns with that. So assuming that your content has, this high quality or it's extremely shareable, it has what it takes to get discovered, then what do you actually have to do to make that happen? Like you publish it, you've got this high quality, it's share worthy. What then? And this brings me to the second secret that I wish I'd known, which is that there's really only two tactics that move the needle based on my experience. So take this with as much salt as you need, but this is what we see working with content and when we look at what works for us. So I'm a little nervous about this, but really I'm going to claim that to capture sustainable traffic, you don't need to do any of this very common advice. What really matters For shares, you need influencers. And for search, you need backlinks. This is really important. I'm going to go into both of these points in detail and discover more about why these two things matter. So content doesn't get shared the way that you think when it goes on social media. There's been studies on this. You need influencers because people are actually a lot less willing to share than you think. When people, like average people, share a piece of content with other regular people, it just travels like 1-to-1. We think that this is what happens. We think that content is like, I'll share it with 2 people, and then they'll share it with 2, and then maybe they'll share it with 3, and then they'll share it with 4 or 5, and it just kind of grows over time. This makes sense in our brains, but this doesn't happen. This happens. It's way more like this. One person shares it, and they share it in a message, but they're not super influential, so not that many people pay attention, not that many people share, and they might see it, but they don't pass it forward, and it just trickles along, but it doesn't grow in exposure. Not really. Every once in a while, though, you may get lucky through this kind of grapevine. You may reach an influencer. That's the person with the heart above the head. You might just magically get in front of an influencer, and maybe magically, out of the goodness of their heart, they share your post. This is what it looks like when influencers share stuff. At the very moment when they share something with their network, they've already reached hundreds or thousands of people. So even if those people don't share it, because they probably won't, they've already seen it. They've been reached. Boom. It happened in like 3 seconds. So that's why it's really important to understand the mechanics of how viral content actually travels. It's really important to get that influencer on board because it'll make your life just way simpler. So how do you get influencers? It's a tricky question. You may know somebody, so obviously personal connections are great. But one way you can get influencers is you can pay them to promote you. There's lots of platforms that let you do that. Another popular tactic is using ego bait, like featuring them, interviewing them, telling them that they're the best person in their field and that you want to collaborate with them and promote them, stuff like that. Ego bait works, some of the time. Influencers tend to be pretty busy, so you have to have a thick skin and be willing to hear no. And then finally, you can build real relationships with them, and then you involve them in creating and promoting your content. That really works better once you're like medium established, or if you have an initiative that they can really get behind, because you have to be providing that value for them as well. So those are 3 ways that people get influencers. We've done all of them. We've had moderate success with all of them. So I'd recommend those. Any questions before we move on to talking about backlinks? Questions about sharing and influencers, promoting your content, social media? Hit me with them if you have any questions, and let's keep rolling. Secret number 4. So I mentioned those 2 tactics that really seem to move the needle. Influencers is one of them. Backlinks is the other one. Backlinks are this whole new world. It's definitely not something that new bloggers pay attention to, but it's extremely important because they can make or break your organic rankings. So I'm going to talk about backlinks and what they are, but I'm just going to let you know that backlinks are not the only thing. It's not the number of backlinks you need. You don't just need any backlink because Google uses like a bunch of different ranking factors. So I just want to give you a peek behind the scenes here. Look at backlinks. This is Ahrefs. We use this to analyze some of the link and keyword data from our websites. So you can look at the top and see that the DPM, the Digital Project Manager, has a domain rating of 71, according to this tool, Ahrefs. This is calculated based on how many websites or domains are linking to ours. So that's a combination of all the domains out there that are linking to somewhere on our site. If you look at the number next to that, there's 1,600 of those referring domains. So the more referring domains, generally, the higher the DR of your website. And each of those backlinks from those domains counts as this sort of vote that this website believes that you are authoritative or worth linking to, and Google factors that in when they consider how good your website is. So there's a couple other sites on here. There's a lot fewer sites linking to people managing people and the QA lead. If you look at people managing people, there's 147 referring domains. So the DR is a lot lower, it's 29. But if you look at the people managing people compared to the QA lead below, highlighted in pink, they have the same domain rating. But if you look at the number of referring domains, one has way more. So if they have the same number of websites linking to them, Y is, or if they have, yes, no, if they have a, what am I saying? If they have the same DR, why do they have different number of websites linking to them? Ben's laughing at me.
Yeah. So they both got the same. They both have the same domain rating, but they have a different number of referring domains, and that is because there's different quality in the referring domains. So whilst people managing people has 147 links to the site, they're clearly not as good as the 90 links that we have to the QA lead. And you can see that even more starkly when you look at the ecom manager. That's got a much higher domain rating. It's 37, and it only has 128 referring domains. So quality of the links is more important than the number of links, but we need both quality and quantity.
Yeah, exactly what he said. Feel free to ask questions and comments on this stuff. I know, like, seeing it for the first time, you're like, what is domain rating? What is domain?
And I think it's worth it. Just the reason why we're harping on about this isn't just because this is a nice number, but the higher the domain rating we have, the better the chances that we rank for a keyword. So we want a domain rating that's high, and we also want to rank the specific page. But this is just showing at a high level. Links make a difference because the higher the domain rating we have, the better our chances are of appearing top of search.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That said, little caveat for you before we get crazy about backlinks. They're not the only thing that makes your post rank, because Google uses like 200 ranking factors. So we really don't know why stuff ranks. I mean, the people at Google don't even know, because the algorithms are so complicated. We don't know how many links you need to, that will really impact your site, but we do know that they have an impact. So I know a lot of you are working on side hustles or helping friends with businesses. I just wanted to paint this picture, types of Google ranking factors that are out there. There's a whole bunch of different ranking factors, and a lot of them right now are out of your control if you are working, specifically on developing content. So you can't really control all of these factors with one blog post, and even a well-written, high-quality blog post with backlinks won't be, your saving grace, so to speak. But in your content, you do have control over quite a few of these factors. And you already covered a lot of these when you made your post based on those keywords. You can control page-level factors like keyword structure and a content being appropriate length, having a table of contents. You can also influence user interaction factors by making sure that it's meaningful and relevant and engaging, keeping people on your page, showing Google that people like spending time there, getting repeat traffic. And maybe it's sticky enough to make people come back. Google factors these things in. You can also influence a couple of those special algorithm rules, like you saw those featured snippets that appear in the search results. You could write content specifically to try to get into those featured bits. And you can also control on your page that it's not spammy in nature. You can make sure that you're including really relevant, high quality links, that you're not overstuffing it with keywords and things like that. So you do have quite a bit of control. And now you can give that piece that final competitive edge as you promote it by getting some backlinks. So backlinks is part of off-page SEO. So that's activities you do outside of your page to help your post rank, like getting other sites to link to it. So how do you get the backlinks? This is the question. There are a bazillion ways, but there's three main approaches. It's either you ask for them straight up, like give me a link. You use content, you build content, send it to other sites, and it has your links in it. So you use content as a vessel to get those links onto other sites. Or you pay for them. You pay a link builder or an agency to do any of these tactics and more. So I think asking for a link is the simplest place to start. It's the most basic way of doing it. Using content to place links on other sites is a little bit more complicated, and obviously paying for them is something when you really have the budget for it. Asking for them requires volume. You have to ask a lot to get. And then using content obviously requires content, so there's a bit of investment there in terms of effort and time. And then paying for them obviously requires money. So what does that really look like for us? We run a bunch of different campaigns, but I'll give you an example of the Ask for a Link campaign. But before I walk through that, I want to make sure that I'm getting to these questions if they're having to do with what we're talking about right now. Alyssa's asking, so a backlink isn't inserting links into your post? Correct. A backlink is about getting a different website to link to your post or your page or something like that. Yeah. In our post, when we're writing our post, I would just call those links. Like, oh, check out blah, blah, blah. Here's a link to it if you want to see it, blah, blah, blah. Those are links for us. I mean, they're backlinks for someone else. But yes, when we talk about backlinks, we mean somebody else linking to our page. Yeah. Phil is asking if he's targeting a niche audience that he's not worried about everyone visiting his site. I do care about my niche audience. How can we see domain rating by segment or niche? That's a really interesting question. So basically, Phil, you're asking, I don't really care if I get a bunch of random traffic. Where are we? Where was that post on DR? You're like, I don't care if my domain rating is high. I don't care if I get 7,000 hits in volume if they're not relevant and niche and local. I think that's a really good point. I think that that's really more of almost a business question, to be honest. It's because you're targeting a niche audience, you may discover that SEO is a great way for you to get people into your audience when you publish those posts about like birth control or bathroom remodels or whatever it is. Those bring people into your circle, but then that's really the community that you need to focus on, the people that already know you and building that up. There is no metric that you can look at, because DR is the same no matter what. DR is simply a measure of how many websites link to yours. Different keyword tools have slightly different formulas for calculating it. So you might hear domain rating, domain authority, domain score. But basically, they're all calculations of how strong is your website profile related to others on the web. So there is no metric you can look at for local stuff, not that I know of, at least.
Yeah, and to be honest, the principle still applies, right? We still want a high domain rating, in comparison, or a higher domain rating than the sites we're trying to outrank. So it might be that, yeah, the domain rating of our competitors is lower. It might be that their domain rating is 10, and the kind of numbers, the DRs that you're talking about, the domain ratings you're talking about are kind of less than 20, but still you want to outrank them. It doesn't matter. The scale kind of is still the same. It's just depending on how competitive that niche is, you'll need a higher, if it's a competitive niche, you'll need a much higher DR. So for the digital project manager, like our DR is 70 something. And that we need that kind of DR for our business to function. If we had a DR of 30, we wouldn't be making any money. So it's just a function of what you're trying to do from a business perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hopefully that helps out. Backlinking is quite an industry, I would almost say. It's I think for now, just knowing that DR is a good metric to have in mind, but the real importance is that you're gaining those links and you're gaining that visibility for your site. You're strengthening its profile so that you're more likely to rank in search. And one way we do that is, I've got an example up here, is the Ask for a Link campaign. So the basic process for that is finding websites that are relevant to yours and are also, good quality. They have a high DS or DA or DR, which is the score, authority, or ranking. It's whatever the tool uses, that you're using. And then you take that website, you find places in their content where they mention a relevant topic to your article, but they don't link to anything. And you say, okay, in that piece of text, they could be linking to my post. So then I find the email for their webmaster or their editor or their content person, and I email them and I ask for a link. I also have to follow up a few times usually, and hopefully at the end, I see a live link. This is an example of the email. I'm not going to go through it now, but it's here for you in the slides. If you'd like an idea of how we reach out, you could use this or kind of modify it. And I'm going to show you the results that you can expect. My reply rate for these types of emails where I asked for a link was in the 9 to 12% range. So that means if I sent 100 emails, 9 people replied, and then the win rate was 1%, maybe 2. So that means if I sent 100 emails, I got 1 or 2 links. So that's why I'm showing you this, is to emphasize that, you do need that volume usually to make this type of asking campaign work, simply because you get a lot of dud email addresses. Not everybody has time. Not everybody wants to, and that's just part of the game. So when you do get a link, everybody freaks out a little bit because it's a really big deal. It's difficult. So I'm curious to know if you think you can do it based on what we've gone over. Like, do you think that you could try it out? Do you think you could hunt around, find a relevant site, get the person's email, and ask them for a link? I think you can, and I would challenge you to do that as part of your extra credit today. But before you do, I'm going to tell you some useful tools to help you do it. So there's your typical tools that you use to schedule social media. So if you're already doing some social media and you're finding that it's kind of cumbersome, you can use tools like Loomly, Hootsuite, Missing Letter, Sprout Social. These all help you schedule social media in advance. They help you do repeat campaigns. They find hashtags for you, all sorts of stuff. If you're trying to promote your content through newsletters, you can, of course, use email tools like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign. But if you're going to look at getting some influencers, a quick route to that would be just finding and paying them through the platform called QPromote. There's other platforms that are specific to different social media networks, but QPromote is a pretty standard tool. Also, if you're looking to pitch journalists who might write about your service or product or article, there's this service called HARO, or Help a Reporter Out, and that's a good way to contact journalists. We use that. You have to be really quick because journalists work on really tight schedules, but as long as you keep pitching and do it quickly, with quick turnaround time, that could be a way to get a link or to get even some publicity for whatever you're working on. And I think, honestly, the most useful tool for you right now will be your email and a spreadsheet and hunter.io, which is an email finder tool. Because I think, at this stage, really, it's all about making those small incremental movements and really going through the basic process to understand the mechanics, to understand what works for you, and just experiment with emailing an influencer or emailing a website to get a link. So for anyone publishing on one of our blogs, this homework will be a little bit different for you depending on if you're on one of our blogs or doing your own thing. But if you are planning on publishing on one of our blogs, please ping me with an email after this session and send me your first and last name that you'd like as the author, and also the author bio, so that I can get you set up with an account to publish on WordPress. And then before you start publishing, I'd suggest that you trade drafts with a classmate, just so that you can both go over that proofing checklist for each other and make suggestions or comments on the post before moving forward. It's a nice practice because sometimes you need to get out of your own creative mindset and get into somebody else's in order to see things more clearly. Then after you've applied the proofing checklist, you load and you publish your post. And it would be really awesome if you could share those links in Mighty Networks so we can all check out your work. And a little bit of extra credit. It's difficult, but if you're up to the challenge, I would challenge you to try to get an influencer to share your article or to tweet about it or something, or try building a link, like see what happens. Get your feet wet and go through the process and give us some feedback. If you do manage to get something out of it, I'd love to hear about your success in Mighty Networks. Share that with the group. If it didn't work, still like to know what you discovered along the way, what challenges you came up against, so that we can help you out. So with that, we're at the end of our hour here. So if you have any questions, please hit us with them now. Otherwise, we'll send you on your way.
Yeah, we covered a lot today. But this whole backlinking thing, I think it's one of the things when, it wasn't until a few years ago that I really cottoned on to the fact that you needed to do this.
I never knew.
And, I'm muted?
No, you're good.
Oh, sorry.
I said I never knew.
Oh, yeah, I never knew, yeah. And it makes a massive difference. And I think when you're starting out, you can kind of feel like, is this really worth my time? And it's 100% worth your time. Yeah, a medium link is definitely an easy one to do. One way that we use Medium is to post an excerpt of the article on Medium and then say, to read the full post, check out our website. It's kind of a bit cheeky, but it works a bit. It's not a do follow link there. What we really want is do follow links. So any links that are easy to get, where you can just post on a forum or post on a blog somewhere else and link back, they're normally not the best links to have. I don't think they harm you, but what you really want is a real link from a real website where for some reason someone has decided, yes, that you're worth linking to. But when you start doing that, it massively helps your visibility, because Google's like, hey, this site must be important. Someone's inserting a real link into it. So backlinking really does matter, as difficult as it is. We probably spend more, definitely in terms of our marketing budget, we spend more money on backlinks, buying backlinks actually, than anything else, as an indicator of how important this is.
Yeah. It's pretty important. But I know you're all managing sites like the In Your Hands site and the bathroom remodel site. I would also just exercise caution in those backlinking. Like if you do start getting into it, really be careful. Try not to do anything that feels less legitimate than just getting an authentic link on a website, because I know a couple businesses that I just feel like they're running themselves into the ground a bit by using kind of spammy backlinking techniques that, done in isolation, it just makes your backlinks look really weird to Google. It's like a bazillion really low quality, strange links. And so I would just caution you, really stick to stick to the high quality stuff, even though it's harder for now, especially when your website is, if it's fresh and doesn't have many links, then we're going to want to make sure the ones that are there are really good. Awesome, awesome. Well, I think we're good with questions. I'm going to let you folks run and proof and publish your stuff. Remember to email me with your email and author information after this if you plan on publishing with us. And I look forward to seeing you on Friday. Please let us know if there's anything that we didn't cover that you really want us to get to. Send us the questions. We'll work it in on Friday because that's our last big session together. So we want to make sure that we're giving you valuable insight that you can really move forward with and, feel confident in pushing yourself forward into this world of digital content. Yeah, hit us with those questions. Off to the races, folks.
Sweet. Catch you later, potatoes.
Bye.
I'm ending it. I hate the way you have to end it twice.